going back to the full context, because you are a parent, as you've mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
So when you've had a disconnected, denied experience as a child, I know this, one of the biggest fears when I was pregnant was that I would be my mother,
Mm-hmm.
and that I was scared of that, so terribly scared. And I think there are elements of me that are, to be honest, because, you know, DNA and all that. But I have to be super aware of it, and I try and be really honest. And there are challenges with having teenage girls, as you know, and but beautiful challenges, not negative challenges, just learning about yourself as a parent all the time. And I always try and take responsibility and just, you know, let mine know that that was my mistake and I'm really sorry about that and whatever. But I have this overwhelming sense of, oh, have I fucked her up? It's just such a big thing for me. So how do you navigate that?
So the best way to describe, people often say try and be the parent that you needed when you were young.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's wrong.
Yeah.
I think you should be the parent you needed when you were young for yourself.
Yeah.
Not for your own kids.
That's so true.
Don't parent them from the place of lack that you experience, right? They need the parent that they need right now.
Yeah.
So how do you best show up for that? So then another thing that people often say is give your children a childhood they won't need to heal from. And I say, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. There'll be parts of us that we don't know need healing until we have a daughter who's 13, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's more about, and you've already answered, you already said it, which is that ability to be able to revisit.
Mm.
And I believe that I have been successful as a parent if, when my children need to do some healing work on themselves in their adulthood, and my eldest is an adult now, she's 18, in the eyes of society, is an adult anyway. When she needs to explore the things that happened in her childhood, when she needs to look at the negative impacts of some of the ways that I showed up, I hope that she'll be able to feel like she can drop me a text and say, Dad, I got some stuff I want to talk about.
Yeah.
And I hope I'll have enough about me to show up and be able to breathe through it and accept it.
That's really beautiful.
And if I can do that, then we've done, I've done all right.
But that is so beautiful. And I'm a little bit watery-eyed, and I tell you what, because that is all anybody needs. I've never had that experience.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you haven't, because I know you lost your dad really young. But, you know, to not be able to, I can't imagine having that conversation. In fact, I've tried to have that conversation with my parents.
Yeah.
And it's always been, what's the problem?
Yeah.
You know, and so for you to say that, it's just a lovely, warm, fuzzy feeling.
And it's realistic. Takes the pressure off me as well.
Yeah.
Because there's enough pressure. And, you know, there's lots of parts of me that will be my dad.
Yeah.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
There's parts of me that, you know, I don't like and that don't make a very good parent.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
So rather than pretend that that's not the reality, let me see the truth. And then, you know, if you look at my older children who were born when I was still drinking, I mean, they're going to have some issues, you know? So
yes,
I want to be present for them. And I believe that all of my kids, at their varying ages that they are, if the shit hit the fan in their life right now, they'd phone me. So I'm doing all right.
You are definitely doing all right. And also you are, you know, you're helping others see themselves. And I always say this, doing the work that I do, it's people think you've got all your shit together. And there was this one post that you put out, and I'd like your post is tremendous. As soon as a few of my clients said follow him, I was like, yes, I followed you. And so much of what you said makes perfect sense. But there was this one, and I'm going to call it out. I think I might have even mentioned it on here before to someone else, but I'm going to say it again. It was about birthday cards and Christmas cards and all of this sort of stuff. And one of the things that my mum does, and my clients will know this because I talk about this a lot when they've got toxic parents too, is she puts a birthday card through the door for my daughter and a Christmas card for my daughter. And she comes to my house to post that card. And there's always £50 in it. And I absolutely get completely full of some kind of trigger. It's anger, pissed offness, whatever. And I could never really come to grips with why. Like, if I tell someone, like, my mum's put a card through the door for my daughter, it's like, well, it's a granddaughter, you know, she probably thinks she's doing the right thing. And you put this post out, and it was like the power play and the fake olive branch and the ability to say, which is what I felt, by the way, well, I've kept my end of the bargain, that kind of attitude. And I always thought, why can't she just, if she really wants to do that, why can't she just put it in the post box? Because then I don't have to have on my Ring doorbell seeing my mum come to my door when she, as far as she's concerned, I'm dead. Bear in mind, I was the abused here, and I'm dead. I don't exist. But she can come to my house and come on my property and put a card through my door. So explain why I might be so triggered by that, if you could, for other listeners that may not get it.
Look, I think it makes sense that because, like, I'll say it for what I believe it is, which is an opportunity to abuse you from afar.
Yes.
Right. That's what I truly believe it is. And look, all emotional abuse, like, treads along that line of being hard to articulate and, you know, sits in the nuance, right? Abuse loves nuance, right?
Yeah,
and we should talk about nuance, but abuse loves nuance, right? Your mum knows that she can say to 99% of the people, I did this, and they'll all say, well, at least you're trying. Why is she getting so upset?
Yeah.
But when you have a knowing of what some of these people are like, you know, look, I'm sure there's people out there that are alienated for a whole bunch of different reasons, and they do that because that's their only option, right? But that's not what this is.
No.
And when you know that that's not what this is, and when, again, this is like emotional abuse and abuse as a whole, plays on sensitivity. It's all to do with the body, the way that it makes you feel.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to articulate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very difficult to say the truth of what you're experiencing. And so that helps to keep you silent.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So
put up and shut up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's natural that it's going to trigger you because it's a way of abusing you from afar.
And the difficulty was, if I said to someone, oh, this is what my dad did, he did this, and like, oh my God, that's disgusting. Because it's a very physical, sexual abuse. But that type of abuse, and this is what angers me about the different way that we chop abuse up and categorize it. Like, that hurts me.
Yeah.
And when I've said to people and they've dismissed it, it's been like, oh, so I've got no right to feel this way then.
Yeah. Emotional abuse, particularly from a parent, because it will have gone on for a lifetime, right? Some of it we wouldn't have even noticed. Is I say, it's like death by 1,000 cuts, right?
Yeah.
And so the act of coming back in and doing the card in that way is like just coming and putting a bit of salt in the wounds.
It is,
got, right?
That's right.
You know, you can show a small, tiny cut and people can say, well, that's not that painful. But then if you reveal the extent and how many you've got of them, then people go, oh my God, like that's...
Yeah.
You know, and it's rubbing salt in old wounds.
Yeah.
And like, it's a power play. It's like, they know exactly what they're doing, right? They know exactly what they're doing. And it's very difficult to call out. But that's why we need to talk about it. That's why it needs calling out in that way.
And that's one of the reasons I was bringing it up today, because it's one of those things that other people, unless you've experienced it, won't understand. And when I mentioned this earlier before we recorded, you said it was that type of post that you get so much abuse of.
Yeah,
you know, you get loads of praise and all of that, but it's that type. Is that because people are being do they think you're just kind of making shit up, or do they get angry about it because they've done it themselves? What do you think that's about?
I think there's a number of different things. Some of them are people that have been alienated for other reasons, right? So there's that, and you can sort of validate that. But a lot of it's like what I would call reactive abuse as well, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, if I do this thing and I do it in this way, if you kick off about it and show that it's bad, then I can point and go, well, you're the problem here, yeah? And so that's what happens in society. Rather than going, whoa, hang on a minute, like, if this feels like an adverse reaction to something from somebody, so if people think your reaction is adverse, right, we should be first taking a step back and going, well, hang on a minute, where does this come from?
Yeah.
Why might this happen? Is this person who is normally sound of mind, somebody that I trust and know and normally reacts quite well, they're having what seems like an abnormal reaction here. Is that going to be completely because of them, or can I zoom out and see the truth of it? But people don't zoom out. People don't have the emotional capacity or bandwidth to look fully at these things, to sit with the extent of what people truly experience. And it's much easier on a societal level to point at you the receiver of the abuse than it is to go through the actual little bit of work that you need to do to see the extent of what's going on.
Which brings me on to another question. With people that seem very, very resistant, so they've gone through layers and layers of trauma, perhaps, unfortunately, different types of trauma to perhaps the childhood abuse stuff or childhood neglect, and they've had layers of trauma later on in life as well, and they seem resistant to the body work, to the therapy work. And let's say they've tried so much of it, and they really have, but I guess they've hit that point where the pain is too much. What kind of things can we as coaches, practitioners, therapists perhaps do with those really resistant people?
Like, I think the reality is that it's more about, you have to keep creating safety and keep creating and keep modeling what it is to be at one with yourself.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think if you push, you'll end up pushing people away.
Yeah.
But I always say, like, we don't have the power to change other people, right? But we can influence them. And the greatest way for me to influence you is to show you how incredibly amazing my experience is doing this thing, so that you go, I'm going to need to try that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of modeling in it. And look, I think if somebody's coming and actively engaging in something, but not allowing themselves to fully engage in it, you have to sometimes question that as well.
Yeah,
right?
you do. Yeah.
You have to sometimes question that. What's driving you? Why are you doing this?
And why are you more comfortable where you are if you're here?
Yeah.
Because it's a very difficult one, isn't it? And I think we've got to be careful of transference, counter-transference and all that sort of stuff. That's I know, speaking to a lot of therapists myself and running this clinic and all of that stuff, is that I don't experience this much, I have to say, not now, but I've been in the game for 20 years. So I'm not saying that makes me a guru, because it certainly does not. I still feel like I've only been doing it for about 6 months. But that sense of frustration, which we've all experienced at times, you've got to question, what is it that's safe? Because this is about safety and do the client no harm. What is it that's safer, that, being there? Yeah. Because they perceive that as safer, even though there was a conscious, remember it's 95% subconscious, let's say roughly, and 5% conscious. There is a conscious desire to move forward, but there is a subconscious sense of safety where they're at. And it goes back to so much of what you've said about the body. And looking at, you were talking about certifications and qualifications. Well, I did all of that thing. But then I started to blend those modalities and kind of make my own up. And that's not to say I'm, being unethical here. I'm using philosophies and theses and all of these theories from different models, and finding a way that works for my clients. So blending hypnotherapy and bilateral stimulation is one of my favorite things to do. And it works for so many people because they're dropping down, as you call it. They're in the back of their mind. They're more open. The analytical layer is less active, but you're getting into the emotional processing area. And with that work, they don't have to talk too much. They don't have to be in their front brain. They don't have to be giving you the answers. You just feel your way through it with them and make the suggestions. And afterwards, they'll tell you whether they liked it or not. And that gives you those somatic techniques, be it breathwork or be it using the brain's, bilateral work, breath work, whatever. That's the work where people will show you and you don't need to work it out for them. But it's a really hard thing to accept because so many of us that are classically trained, if you like, are taught theories. And, one of my worst, most horrendous things was role play. I used to flipping hate it like this. And it got to the point where I refused to do it, the rebel that I am. But I could not bear pretending. This person pretending to be the patient. This person's pretending to be the therapist. You've got a story that someone's made up somewhere. There's nothing organic about it. How are you supposed to prove anything in that situation? It's only through the organic experience. I asked that question because I know that people that listen that are therapists and coaches do sometimes say to me, what do I do with this person? And the answer is ask them what's more comfortable about where they are, I think.
Yeah.
Because like you say, you've got to question, why are they here in the first place?
Yeah.
There's something more comfortable about where they are, but they're curious, I guess.
Mm.
And it's holding that safe space. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do if you don't feel safe yourself. How do you manage that? Because I've got to say this, and I don't know if this is controversial or not, but sometimes when I'm in a heightened state, I'm so focused and so present. And I might have had an argument with someone, or I might be a little bit dysregulated, but I feel really focused and present in that time because I guess you're more tuned in from an animalistic point of view. So that's sometimes when I do my best work. But in theory, you know, if I'm heightened and something, I've just had an argument before I turn up to work, in theory, I probably shouldn't be doing that work. But I feel, it's like when I'm hungry. I'm really focused when I'm hungry. So I try not to eat when I'm working. And sometimes I'll have, even on this podcast, I'll have a rumbly tummy because it keeps me focused. What's your thoughts on that in terms of your own experiences of dysregulation?
I think, again, it's about being in your body, right?
Yeah.
It's about being in your body. And even if you take the idea of eating, right? When you eat, you're filling something in your body.
Yeah.
And in today's world, by the way, we don't eat food, do we? We
No.
eat, like, a lot of the food is just drugs now.
Yeah, that's right.
In the way that it's made and all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by that? So, like, I think I was having a difficult day the other day, and this relates to what you're saying. I felt really not in my body, right? And that happens to me, particularly if I'm in the office trying to do like email shit. I hate it.
Yeah.
And so I was struggling to be in my body, and I had a hygienist appointment, right? I was driving to this hygienist, and I was like thinking, I feel so shit. I feel really dysregulated. And I came out of the hygienist, and I felt brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's because it was a moment that forced me
Yeah.
present.
Yeah.
And in my body.
Yeah.
It's not particularly comfortable.
No.
I'm in my body. I'm trying to focus and all that. And you realize that when we talk about somatic work, the soma, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just another way that brings me into my body.
Breaking the state.
Exactly. Yeah. To just be in my body. And I get that naturally as well, by the way, when I'm holding space for other people.
Me too. Me too.
When I'm holding space for other people, that I say it's one of the saddest things about my work is that I can't just be like that all of the time. Because if I could be like what I am when I'm holding space for people, particularly groups in my case, my life would be amazing. I wouldn't have to do any work on myself.
I mean, it's so true, everything you said. And one of the things it reminds me of is people resisting pain. But actually, when you, I always talk about the childbirth thing, accidentally ended up having no pain relief. But the feeling afterwards of, because, you know, the natural childbirth is all those natural endorphins, oxytocin, adrenaline. I've never felt so magical in my entire life. And it made me realize that you don't get to have that beautiful, magical, organic feeling without feeling the pain. And so whether we're talking about emotional pain or physical pain, I mean, some physical pain you don't need to feel, but when it's certain pain, the point is that when you're in the body and you're experiencing the body, you will get that magical rush of something in a way that you can't when you deny it and push it down and try to ignore it. And I think that, you know, just the story about the hygienist, just watching you squirm a little bit as you're remembering it, it does make me think, yeah, because that would have been a whole thing for you to experience yourself in a different way.
Yeah. And like the pockets of freedom are in the pain, right?
Yeah.
In emotional sense and in every sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you can go through that pain and get into the center of it, that's where you find the freedom, where you go, oh, I can deal with this. I can hold this. I can move through this.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of somatic work is, right?
And as we said earlier, you know, I guess as a closing point really is that these aren't things that Josh is making up. I mean, these philosophies have been around for thousands of years.
Yeah.
It's just that you're the voice for the people that perhaps haven't accessed that information already. It's that pay it forward thing, isn't it? Like you're part of the pay it forward movement, and again, the way that you're doing it is honest and ethical. And if you've listened to this podcast and you think, wow, like so much was said there and I can't remember anything because I was so absorbed in the moment, this is where I'm going to show it to the camera again. This is where the book comes in, because it's kind of all in there. Hopefully it will be in focus, and I'll do it to the middle one as well. And if I do, just cover your face. There you go. There you go. And the reason I say that is because, I've thoroughly enjoyed reading it. I know I did leave it to the last minute, I'm not going to lie. So I read it in 2 days. And, I said you could open it anywhere. And if I open it somewhere, we've got here, it's the loner, the catastrophizer, the dark fire. You've got journal prompts. You've got so much in here. So everything we've spoken about today is in that book. Again, a lot of my own clients get a lot of joy and self-awareness from what you do. And I know that you've got a lot of followers, but I think sometimes we forget that people are listening and people are watching. And I know you'll get hundreds of messages or emails or whatever, and sometimes you might take it for granted what you're doing in the world. But for me personally, it's made a big difference to feel seen and heard.
Yeah.
And for lots of people that I know personally, that's been the case. And I can only imagine how many people are getting so much from you with all the talks you're doing at the minute, all your workshops. And I'm not saying that for your ego, by the way. I'm saying that from a genuine place of it means something. And we need people like you to do that work. And, I'm part of that crew as well. I think, and I encourage anyone who's got a desire to come into this space, if you've got the right reasons and you've got a natural skill and ability to hold space and keep people feeling safe, come and join us, because it's a great place to be, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I echo everything that you said there. And I appreciate it. I mean, I think I've really lent into it the last particularly couple of weeks. I went on tour with the book, and I think I was able to sort of, really be with that for the first time fully, maybe.
Yeah. And I'm sure being in front of crowds again and again over that 2 weeks has had a bit of a profound effect on the way you see the work that you're doing as well.
Yeah.
Because these weren't like groups of 10. They were quite big events.
There was a couple of hundred at each one.
They're quite big events. And it's a big thing to do. I don't know about you, but I still now get nervous standing up. But it doesn't matter if it's 10 people or 200 people. It's still a scary thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. I love it though. I feel like it's my calling, yeah.
You're certainly probably more natural at it than me then. I like the one-to-one stuff better. I mean, I do the groups, but I do really like the one-to-one stuff.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite. I like the group stuff.
Yeah, which is great, because then everyone's got their space. That's what I mean.
Exactly.
The more the merrier, because everyone finds their little special space.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. You came from Wiltshire, which is a good couple of hours. There was an accident and all sorts. So thank you so much for coming.
Pleasure.
And honestly, I've been a fan for ages. And you know what? I think I reached out to you first. Like, I've got no shame. And that's the other thing I'll say before we end. Reach out to people and send them a message, because even if they've got a lot of followers, Josh doesn't, I mean, I'm sure you can't answer every message, but you replied and
Yeah, I try and reply to as many as I can.
Yeah.
And
I think it's important, if you've got something or you want something or you need to say something to someone, reach out to them, because that's what the whole point of social media, I think, is community.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
Thank you again.
Thank you, I've loved it.
Aw, that was honestly just beautiful. You are made for this talking stuff. You are.